Harp on Sports, The Bar, podcast, media, audio, and radio network. What do we have in store for you on this edition of the program? A little NFL postseason primer. What we believe are the 5 biggest storylines heading into this NFL postseason across the board. Quite a bit of legacy play going on here. What's interesting is the 4 highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL this season did not make the postseason. But I don't think we really thought any of them had a chance to win a Super Bowl. Maybe 1, maybe 2 at the beginning of the year could get there. But their heavy hitters are there, so we're going to look at what this postseason will unveil, these 5 storylines playing out. Also, a little Jaden Rashada reveal as the University of Florida finds itself front and center, the athletic program, with an NIL. Did he? Didn't he? Did they? Didn't they? When it comes to pay, what did they want? 2 different scenarios here. And again, I lay this at the athletic directors and the president's feet. People blaming the NCAA on this. Look, the NCAA deserves a lot of criticism, a lot of blame for quite a bit. This isn't one of them. This is university president's fault. This is athletic director's fault. No one else. No one else. So we're going to dive into that as well. Also, a West Coast Waltz, as we've hit the halfway point of the college basketball season. It's hard to believe, right? College basketball starts when? Second week of November. We're in the second week of January. Second week of March is the NCAA tournament. So we're about halfway through. So a little West Coast Waltz when it comes to college basketball. Again, Harp on Sports, The Bar, podcast, media, audio, radio network. Follow, share, like, subscribe at Harp on Sports Twitter, at Harp on Sports Instagram, Harp on Sports Auditory Route, Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Harp on Sports YouTube channel, Harp on Sports, the Facebook page, and of course, harponsports.com. Click, follow, share, like, subscribe, all of it. Okay, start off with this first. NFL postseason primer. And again, prediction-wise, at the beginning of the year, I like the Bills to win the Super Bowl. I thought the Bills would beat the Packers. Whiffed on that one. I had the Bills over the Chargers. I don't think we're going to get quite there. And in the NFC, I had the... I had the Packers over the Bucks. Oh, baby. I'll tell you who I think is going to win it coming up. But to me, I want to look at the 5 storylines that I am following, that we're following, that I think are the biggest boxes to check when it comes to this NFL postseason. And the one that I have, and again, counting down to one I think that's the biggest, the number 5 thing I have on my list is the Allen angle. This year was supposed to be Josh Allen's next step, right? Got to the AFC Championship game. Outplayed Patrick Mahomes. Just left a little bit too much time on the clock, the back and forth. Winning the coin toss changed everything. And, last year or 2 years ago, AFC Championship game gets skull drugged by the Chiefs. Last year, go into Kansas City, have them beat. Unable to win. So this year was supposed to be the swan song. This team loses to the Chiefs for a 3rd straight year. Ooh. Now they lose to the Bengals and Joe Burrow. It's almost one of those crazy things where if they lose in the divisional round to Joe Burrow and the Bengals, you're like, oh, okay. Okay, but then the debate begins, is it Joe Burrow or Josh Allen that's the mano-a-mano for Patrick Mahomes over the course of the next half decade? But to me, Josh Allen's angle, look, they win and they beat the Bengals and then they go to Kansas City and win. Oh, okay, over the hump in the Super Bowl. But the Allen angle is number 5 on my list. The 4th thing on my list is Cousins' call. And, Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, if they don't go to the Super Bowl this year, they're going to get there in the next 3 or 4 years. They just are. The thing that's interesting is what do the Vikings do with the 3rd seed if Kirk Cousins and company get beat right out of the gate? So we talk about Cousins in prime time, even though this game's not going to be in prime time, and for a team that went, 13-4? It's a team that everybody kind of looks around with. The team won double-digit games with ease. Team had double-digit wins in December. And it's one of those teams that everybody kind of looks around and looks at and goes, Nobody's, when it comes to who's going to come out of the NFC in the Super Bowl, what do people say? Well, it's going to be the Eagles. It's going to be the Niners. Oh, okay. Those are fine. And then you get, the Cowboys, the Bucks. The Vikings 5th is the 3 seed, the 5th most likely team to get out of there. So, but Kirk Cousins, is this Kirk Cousins calling? Is this the year? They paid him $100 million, over $100 million in Minnesota. Win a couple playoff games. If he gets to the NFC Championship game, is that enough to get people on his back? Cousins calling, number 4 on my list. I've got Joe Burrow's brush at number 3. Is last year, to go on the road and do what they did in the postseason was remarkable. It was. To win on the road in Nashville, then to go on the road and win in Kansas City and have the lead in the Super Bowl until the final few minutes. What he did last year was amazing. The way that they closed, I thought they looked to be the better team against Buffalo a couple weeks ago, but the Damar Hamlin thing throws a wrench in things. And if the Bengals would have won that and the Chiefs would have lost, you'd kind of be talking about the Bengals as the top seed. It's not. So look, this team has shown that it doesn't matter. And I think of all the teams, this is the team that needs home field the least of those 3 in the AFC because of Joe Burrow. So, look, if he climbs the mountaintop, right, and they drill the Ravens or beat the Ravens, and then they go beat Buffalo and then Kansas City, think about what this means for Burrow here. It's kind of like a game of horse. Do it. Okay, you make the shot. Prove it. That's where we are with Joe Burrow. Prove it. So Burrow's brush at number 3 on my list. Number 2, Dak's track. Dak Prescott. Look, they're on the road. I get it. But this is a Cowboys team that we've seen lose at home with Dak Prescott as a quarterback. This is a Cowboys team that we've seen lose on the road in the postseason with Dak Prescott as a quarterback. When it comes to achieving for the Cowboys, do they underachieve or overachieve in the postseason? And of course, I remember growing up, Cowboys were a juggernaut. Not so much. Not so much. It's been, almost 30 years since they went to a conference championship game, 28 years. So what's next for the Dallas Cowboys? Well, this is a Buccaneers team that has a losing record, that in the worst division in football, the Cowboys were red hot at the end of the year until the last week of the season where they just completely imploded. And now you've got yourself set on Tom Brady and everybody saying, here it is, here it comes, Dallas. So Dak, here's where you put a team on your back. You go on the road and win in the postseason. Joe Burrow has gone on the road and won in the postseason. Josh Allen has gone on the road and won in the postseason. Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs have basically had home field, so I don't know if you go on the road and win in the postseason, but he's 2-time MVP or about to be 2-time MVP. Look at the different quarterbacks across the board. We don't know what we're going to get out of Jalen Hurts. We know what we're going to get out of Tom Brady. The NFC is kind of an anomaly at the top. Brock Purdy, Kirk Cousins, Dak Prescott, you look around, Dak Prescott's been the starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys for what now? 6 years? 7 years? Who in the NFC's got a longer run with their team than he does with his? See where I'm going? Seriously. Not Daniel Jones. It's not Kirk Cousins. Dak Prescott has been the starting quarterback with his team in the NFC longer than anybody else. Even Brady's only been in Tampa for 3 years. So what do you got? What do you got? So let's see. Maybe the most the most veteran quarterback with his team in the NFC. What does he do? Dak's track. Number 2. And to me, the biggest one. And again, it's just because of where he is and where he is at the end of his career. It's Brady's bag. What else is going to be in that bag? Do we write another chapter? Did he beat the Cowboys? Does he get knocked out? Is his time done in Tampa? Does it create another vacuum? Does he go to the Raiders? Does he go to the Niners? To me, I think if the Bucs would win the Super Bowl, Brady would be done. I do. But this dude's built differently than anybody that you have ever met or anybody that we have ever watched. He is just built differently. This isn't a guy hanging on that can't do it anymore. He obviously can still do it. He needs to retire. Why? Why does Tom Brady need to retire? Made the playoffs again. It's remarkable. What's funny is the year they win the Super Bowl, they didn't even win the division. And now we talk about how the records all get wiped clean because they do. Look at the Bengals last year. What was the Bengals' regular season record? Nobody cares. Nobody remembers. They went to the Super Bowl, though. So, Brady's bag, what's in it? So those are the 5 things that I'm watching for. Again, Josh Allen's angle, Cousins calling. Is this Kirk Cousins? Over the top. Bros brush. Does he paint another masterpiece? That the potential for the second week of the postseason. I don't know. The Bengals at Buffalo. Oh my gosh. What we could get there. Divisional round games. That's an all-timer, isn't it? What we could see. Especially with that happened just a couple weeks ago. I know. Exciting stuff. Again, Dak's track and Brady's back. Look, the Jaguars, the Chargers, all those are great stories, but those aren't storylines for the postseason. If the Jags get beat or the Chargers get beat right away, okay. Oh, Trevor Lawrence is no. Much more pressure on Kirk Cousins than either quarterback in that game. The Giants, house money, I guess. The Dolphins, backup quarterback, I don't expect a lot out of them. If the Niners do things, okay, it could send. If the Niners get dumped in the second round or don't make it to the Super Bowl, does that change the course? Yeah, Brady may end up there, but it still depends on what happens with Brady down in Tampa. So that's my NFL postseason primer, the 5 things that I'm paying the most attention to as Super Wild Card Weekend is underway. All right, from that to this, Jaden Rashada, the Florida Gators, NIL. To me, everybody talks about how this is ruining college sports. It's not ruining anything. I mean, we just had one of the better college football playoffs we've ever had. Championship game's a blowout. Isn't it funny? People always focus about the wrong things, like NIL's ruining college football. And just 2 weeks ago, I heard nothing about how it was, oh my gosh, the college football playoff, the Final Four were fantastic. Oh, so college football playoff's not ruined? Or college football's ruined? We talked about bowl games and how good the bowl games were. Now, some of them were blowouts, but when you have 40, you're going to have blowouts. Championship game was the biggest blowout in all of college football's postseason. Now, instead of focusing on what everybody should be focusing on is reducing the number of scholarships to create an even playing field, but you don't want that, right? You'd rather point and gripe and complain, this is the NIL's NCAA's fault. Anybody that says the NIL's the NCAA's fault is just a complete and total fool. They're foolish. They don't get it. The NCAA, the governing body, all that's happened is university presidents have complained and griped, and I mentioned this, the NCAA dropped the hammer on USC. Everybody in the SEC and Big Ten was okay with that. Yeah, sure. But the minute the NCAA went to drop the hammer on other programs, oh my gosh, it's an overreach. How dare they do what they did to Penn State? Now, did they boggle some and just completely botch investigations? Yes. Miami, North Carolina, they made mistakes. You bet they did. You bet they did. They hammered Ole Miss about 4 or 5 years ago, and to me, it was completely accurate. But what happened? Well, university presidents and athletic directors wanted to keep these guys amateurs. Here's the biggest farce that you can see, and it ties into the Jaden Rashada thing. Think about this. NCAA, governing body, managing all of this. If university presidents and athletic directors and conferences cared about the players, wouldn't they have made them employees and paid them by now? Wouldn't they have? There's only the NCAA doesn't know what they're doing with NIL. Well, then you make them employees and get rid of it. Well, what? Fix it. No, what happened was the NCAA loses this. The NCAA tried to keep their stranglehold, or the NCAA trying to remain relevant. That is fair. With the student athletes, and then the Supreme Court comes in and says, hey, man, they deserve to make their own money. Okay. And the NCAA basically took a step back and said, all right, we're out of this. We're out of this. And university presidents and ADs, not caring about the greater good, just caring about themselves. All these universities are in an echo chamber. All they do is hear each other. Well, we do not want to be involved with any sort of revenue sharing deal. And because we got more money than everybody else. And what the NIL showed you is all these schools think they have money and they actually don't have as much as the guy next door. Florida finding out they do not have Texas oil money to compete with that. They don't. You just don't compete. You can't. Finding out that one big booster can shell out a check and you think you've got big boosters, but $100,000 boosters, nothing compared to multi-million-dollar boosters. When you've got boosters that run their own oil companies and they make hundreds of millions of dollars a year, and you've got prominent figures in your city, they can't compete with them. Not oil money, not tech money, not apparel money. You can't compete with that. So what's happened now? Now you have an arms race. NCAA, it's like, oh, the NCAA needs to get control of this. Wait a second. The NCAA lost this, took a step back. Athletic directors. You don't want a czar of college football. We were talking about a commissioner of college football. We don't want that. They may not have what's in the best interest of our school. Okay, well, now you've got a mess, and now you want the NCAA to save it? If I'm the NCAA, I'm sitting back and laughing. Now, I know a new president's coming in. Now, the NCAA is kind of come and chipped away at things this week. What did they announce? That you can enter the portal and transfer immediately, but if you enter the portal for a second time, unless it's detrimental to your health to stay there, or you can prove extenuating circumstances why you need to leave, you need to sit out a year. Okay, that's a step in the right direction. It is. It's a step in the right direction. This Jaden Rashada Florida thing, here's what happens. It's fun. It's like, what's going on here? The thing about the National Football League, things are collective bargained, right? And money deals are made public. Collegiately, they're not made public. These deals aren't made public. So you don't know what Florida offered them. If Florida and Jaden Rashada, I don't know what they agreed to, but if Florida and Jaden Rashada agreed to a $2 million NIL deal, and Florida has the money and he's refusing to come, then there you go. If they agreed to a $2 million deal and he's here and Florida's not paying him, there you go. In the NFL, if I agree to a 4-year, $60 million deal with you and you don't show up, it's your fault. If I agree to a 4-year, $60 million deal with you and I don't pay you, then it's on me. Plain as day. This is where NIL things get tricky because all sorts of different things could have happened in this. Well, actually, one of two things happened. Either Florida didn't pony up the money or Jaden Rashada wanted more. It's neither. It's that or that. It's A or B. Black or white. North or south. It's one of those two. Jaden Rashada agreed to a number and Florida didn't honor it. Or Jaden Rashada agreed to a number and he didn't honor it. Somebody is dishonest or untrustworthy. One of the two. You believe who you want. It doesn't matter who, well, it does who did what. But here's where things out in the open. This is the dirtiness of NIL. And remember, that's why I'm not going to, you can't blame the NCAA on this is ridiculous. You can blame it if you want, you're wrong. Athletic directors and university presidents could come out, when you're conferences, when they're negotiating TV deals, spending the money. Universities and colleges don't want transparency. They don't. They don't want you seeing what they're up to. See how much money they make? They're printing money, cry poverty. Oh, Florida, we can't compete with it. Well, you can't compete with oil money, you're right. But you're not poor. So what do? Well, you got to decide what you want to do with the money. You got to get some boosters. You got to change some things up. What are you doing with all that money? There's a simple solution. Not a simple solution. There's a solution to this. Okay? College athletes, when they sign at your school, become employees. Everybody's on a 2-year deal. You want to eliminate the transfer portal to be the ugly mess that it is? Everybody's an employee. When there's an employee, you sign a contract. You get paid X amount. If you want to quit, fine. You don't go anywhere. This happens, right? In my industry, it's called a non-compete clause. If you sign a contract and you leave early, you can't go to certain markets and be a host right away. You can't. Same thing here. Hey, you're under contract. Well, I don't want to be there anymore. Okay. Well, you're under contract. I quit. All right. I want to play right away somewhere. No. If you make them employees, this ends. But they don't want to make them employees because they don't want to pay them. This is, chicken or the egg stuff. Well, I don't want you to do this, but you can't do this. I want you to do this, but I can't do this. University presidents and athletic directors, this is your fault. The Jaden Rashada stuff is your fault. Make things public. Make things transparent. All NIL deals will be transparent. Oh, by the way, it'll never happen. Now, I like what the NCAA did with the portal thing, but to me, if you want to take it a step farther, you want to end the verbal commits, decommitting. Once you verbally commit somewhere, that's not a non-binding contract. I get it. But if you verbally commit publicly somewhere, okay. You can't enter the transfer portal for 24 months. If you decommit. So if I verbally commit to Texas and then I sign somewhere else on National Signing Day, I'm stuck there for 2 years no matter what. Now, if I don't verbally commit and National Signing Day and make my choice, and then I change my mind, okay, then you can go somewhere else. But if you verbally commit, that's it. You change your mind and sign somewhere else, can't go anywhere for 2 years. There's ways around this, but here's the problem. Schools don't want that. Why do schools don't want that? Because we want to get your star. We are so special. No one will ever leave us, but we want your star. We're going to get that next big egg. You know what? College coaches and ADs and school presidents, you know what they are in this case? They're the person pulling the slot machine. The next quarter's it. I know you don't feed quarters anymore. Next quarter's it. Oh, what next quarter's it? That's what they are. Wanted to wrap with this. A little West Coast Waltz, college basketball. I went through and looked at this. I think this is great in terms of shifting balance to make things interesting. Now, there's other teams that need to elevate to make it even more interesting, but 6 of the top 10 teams in college basketball are west of the Mississippi. They are. There's only one non-Power 5 that will soon be a Power 5 with Houston, who's ranked number 1. But what do we have here? We have UCLA, we have Gonzaga, we have Arizona. So, I start to look at this and, Kansas, to me, the East Coast this year in college basketball is kind of North Carolina's ranked, but Duke's not. Duke's ranked. North Carolina's not. The one that's kind of, oh my gosh, what happened? And it may take a while. Villanova's 8-10 this year. Looks like somebody actually kind of mattered out there as the head coach, huh? I know. But I look at this, you got blue bloods, you've got UConn. UConn's the only, what I would consider the only East Coast team that would be a top 3 seed right now. They are. UConn's the only top, East Coast team that'd be a top 3 seed. You got Bama, you've got Tennessee, Purdue, which, they're not East Coast teams. South, Midwest. And again, we got a long way to go, but we are at the halfway point of the college basketball season. We are. Started the first week of November. Here we are the second week of January. College basketball has been going on for 2 months. 2 months from now, we're going to be filling out brackets. 2 months from now, you're going to be filling out brackets. We're halfway through. And, I wrote these down. Kentucky, Duke, North Carolina are all tournament teams, but they're all in that 4 to 6 realm, which set up for fascinating, matchups in the Sweet 16 where you could have like Duke and Kansas and Kentucky and UCLA. You could have those matchups, which are blue blood heaven if, you get all the way down there. But you've got like that, I don't say that middle class, but that group that's, 15 to 25 of those teams in college basketball that are going to be in that second tier outside of those top 2 seeds. To me, Arizona, UCLA, Gonzaga, all being good. Of course it's good for college basketball. Of course it is. The days when it was like UCLA and Florida and LSU and yeah, it's good. Ohio State, yeah, it's fun. Michigan State, yeah, you can balance things out. Duke, North Carolina, yeah. Right? In an ideal world, I've always said the perfect Final Four is what? UCLA, Kansas, and pick. What would it be then? North Carolina or Duke and UConn? You start to do things like that. If you had like a UCLA, Kansas, Duke, UConn Final Four. And what's amazing is UCLA, Kansas, UConn all could end up in the Final Four. So it's a little West Coast Waltz this year. Some of the power shifted out west. The East trying to find footing. And look, the West was going through this a couple years ago where Arizona, it was ugly with Sean Miller, UCLA, when Steve Alford was done and they were trying to figure out what to do there at UCLA. It was a mess. Gonzaga's been a stable body. Kansas, this ugliness going on with Bill Self. Now, I don't really consider Kansas west, but west of the Mississippi. And all of a sudden, those programs have stabilized themselves. And your programs out east, UConn circled back after some ugly years. But there's programs out there that, Michigan State's been solid, but not the elite that they were. And, Duke and North Carolina, John Shire, first year, North Carolina, Hubert Davis is second. These programs try to find footing. Villanova with Jay Wright gone below 500. John Calipari in Kentucky just kind of sitting around there. I left Kentucky out of that perfect Final Four. I don't know if there is such a thing as a perfect Final Four, but you know what I mean. It's a little West Coast Waltz when it comes to college basketball. And, these things move in ebb and flows. But 3 of the top 5 teams in the country right now are what? Kansas. I don't say 3 of the top 5, but Kansas, UCLA, UConn. You get those 3 in the Final Four. It doesn't matter who the 4th team is. Doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Well, it does. I mean, you'd want somebody in there, but those 3 make it. Hallelujah. Harp on Sports, the bar. Podcast, audio, media, radio network. Again, follow, share, like, subscribe at Harp on Sports Twitter, at Harp on Sports Instagram, Harp on Sports, Auditory Route, Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Harp on Sports, the Facebook page, Harp on Sports, the YouTube channel, NFL predictions. You're like, Seth, what happened? Look, it's all said and done. I think the Bengals and the Chiefs play. I picked the Bills to go to the Super Bowl, but now I think the Bengals. I think the Bengals play the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs beat the Bengals. I do. I think the Chiefs beat the Bengals. I have a tough time seeing anybody beating the 49ers. I do. I have a tough time in the NFC if they end up in Philly. But I do. I think the Niners beat Philly. And I think the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl. I do. And I think the Bills having to play the Bengals, whoever wins that having to get back up and have to go out to Kansas City. Now, if Buffalo can get Kansas City neutral site, they'll beat them. But I think the Bengals will win Buffalo. Chiefs over the Niners, rematch Super Bowl 3 years ago. Again, you know where to find me, Harp on Sports, the bar. Remember, stay clean, stay focused, stay strong. Frankenstein. Have fun with your friends.